So guys, this was the moment Fani Kayode accused Shettima, the vice president of Nigeria, of having affiliation with Boko Haram. Don't forget that these things happened some years back, but I tell you, Nigerians have gone out to dig them up, and they are now what is trending on the social media. And don't forget, just today, there've been this attack by Boko Haram in the Chibok community. Many people have lost their life. This is the latest happening in Nigeria today. And people are like saying, oh, in a country where we have a vice president who has been mentioned, to have links with the Boko Haram people, what do we expect? Just listen to this video yourself.
Someone that is virtually senile and another person that has been associated on several occasions with funding terrorism. That is Kashim Shettima. Kashim Shettima, we should not forget Kabiru Sokoto. Kabiru Sokoto was one of the most wanted terrorists, and he was found and arrested in his house. Let us understand and let us not forget, this terrorism, this banditry, this carnage is not just happening by mistake. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. A multi-billion-dollar industry because it takes a lot of money on defense budget. It has a lot to do with the sale of drugs. It has a lot to do with mining and illegal bunkering and illegal and illicit mining. And look at the areas that are generally affected by this. Take the Northeast, for instance. In the Northeast, you have the blue diamond. That is a strategic mineral. You have oil at the Chad Basin that is being explored right now, but illegally. You have Zamfara. If you go to Zamfara, Zamfara has more gold than Ghana. Zamfara's gold is being traded in Dubai and other parts of the country. There is a market called Nigerian gold in Dubai. Go and check. So who is doing this mining? Most times they are the governors, the people in power.
So guys, this is also a video trending on the social media saying moment Shettima visited the bandits. So guys, you have seen it. That is why nobody is taking any meaningful step in stopping this banditry and terrorism in Nigeria. Tell me, why is it difficult for our leaders to stop this terrorism? What are they afraid of? Who are they afraid of hurting? Why are they not taking this bold step in stopping this terrorism in Nigeria? So that is why we keep calling out INEC, because INEC is the one that gets us to where we are today. Nigerians, INEC should be blamed for what we are seeing. If we had had people like Peter Obi and Dati Ahmed who really want to see Nigeria succeed, they won't be playing with this kind of situation. They would have put an end, because they told us that security is the first thing they were going to tackle when they come into power. But we see this government playing with the lives of Nigerians.
Because we're increasingly changing our ecosystem. There are millions of Nigerians now staying in IDP camps. They are internally displaced in their own country, which was never the case before. When you thought about internally displaced people's camp, then it was maybe Liberians that would set up camp for here. Secondly, the area I want to talk about is the war economy. There's a pervasive war economy. Insecurity is big business. Banditry is big business. And if we do not nip this ecosystem in the bud, then we should ask ourselves questions. And that's why when some people were said to have been apprehended by the authorities in Dubai as regards terrorism financing, what happened to them? How are we stopping this illegal money flow? Because you see, anything continues when you have an ecosystem and there's finance involved. So how can we make it unhabitable? Because there's a big financial system. You see, even these bandits and these criminals have informants that they pay. So we need a holistic look at it. And that's why when we talk about security, maybe buy more armories and all of that, but also the ecosystem. And we must bring development to that area. And I would like to ask, because of the insecurity in the Northeast, what is the Northeast Development Commission doing with all the money it's getting? Because because in this budget, they got close to 100 billion or more, while the NDDC got over 300 billion. So what are these development commissions doing? And how can we also use them as a vehicle to stem the tide? And please, this year, we will hold NDDC accountable. We will hold Northeast Development Commission accountable. We will hold them accountable. Because if they are also doing their work, we should stem the tide of this underdevelopment that now knocks on to have a nefarious economy in these areas.
Agree with him is that we cannot even talk about the economy or having a stable economy in Nigeria if we don't tackle the big issue of insecurity. We cannot talk about attracting investors to help the economy of Nigeria if we don't tackle insecurity. There are many aspects of the nation or the growth of the nation that is hedged on tackling insecurity in the nation, and that's why we must center on it. We must talk about it, and this administration must quickly find a solution to this. The reason why people would say, okay, well, they've only been there for 7 months. This administration has only been in for 7 months. But you must remember that before the 7 months, the president and his team must have had a plan and perhaps a formula or a way to a strategy to tackle insecurity, because this problem was there even before the last administration. And so administration after administration seems like it is an overwhelming task. It is almost an impossible task to handle. And so this is a big question for this administration. Is this an admittance of failure of not being able to manage insecurity, not just in the north central states, but also in the northeast and in the south where we have militancy, in the southwest where there are issues around kidnapping, in the southeast where there's still sit-at-home order on Mondays. In many states in the southeast, there's still the sit-at-home order on Monday. So we're not able to tackle this issue. So beyond the issue in Plateau State, which is, as we've talked about, it is not worth thinking about. But beyond that is also the entire security architecture of the nation. And that's why I totally agree with Senator David Mark that perhaps it's time to declare a state of emergency on insecurity in Nigeria. There are a number of think tanks, a number of organizations, personalities, politicians, statesmen who have given or preferred solution as to how to tackle insecurity. So the big issue is, what then is the problem with implementation? We had General Ariola last week here, and he talked about the fact that he was commanding officer of Operation Safe Haven, and he had released a detailed report as to how to tackle the issue of herdsmen-farmer clashes in Plateau State. Why hasn't that been implemented? So beyond the talk, because we have, from Senator David Mark to different people, they've come out to talk about the insecurity situation. What is the big problem? What is the issue with implementation? And so perhaps it must start from the head. It must start from the presidency. First of all, the governor of Plateau State had said previously that there was a lack of political will, as it seemed, to deal with the issues in the state. So it's not a matter of the ability to, it is the fact that it is not seen as a priority, it's not seen as priority, or perhaps adequate attention hasn't been given to insecurity in the state. And so this is the reason why we must continue to call our president and, of course, elected officials to account. They must take account in terms of what is the solution to the prevailing sense of insecurity in that part of the country. There are a number of solutions. The Agora report was done. Many suggestions, many recommendations. The challenge is, how do we take this forward and ensure that we're able to secure lives and properties in Nigeria?
So guys, in a country where the vice president of that country is said to have links with the bad guys in the bush, what kind of country should that country be? And what kind of future should that country be looking forward to having? Honestly, Nigeria is in a mess at the moment because we can't even trust our leaders. And this is why we are not getting investors coming into the country. It has to do with leadership. Who is your leader? What is the background story and history of your leaders? What's the background check? I mean, go and investigate and find out who is your leader. These are some of the things that people are looking at when it comes to coming to Nigeria to invest their hard-earned money, You know, many people don't want to take chances because we have a president with so many controversies around him, and look at the vice president being named among those, you know, who eat and dine with these bad guys in the bush. So guys, this is the problem we have in Nigeria. Wondering why the Tinubu's administration, together with the APC as the leading party, are not willing to fight insecurity in Nigeria. Just listen to this video. This man has got some information to give to the Nigerian people.
National level, we had governors, especially up north where I come from, under that administration, that had all sorts of romance and unholy relationship with terrorism, degenerating to a situation where some of them were even talking of amnesty. It was shocking to some of us. Amnesty for who? You tell me they are repentant terrorists. Repentant from what? We are soldiers. Our duty is not to come here and grant repentance. Our duty is to hasten your appointment with God to heaven or hell, where he will grant you penance. So, for us to be bringing large number of men from the forest who hitherto were armed and taking on fellow Nigerians, then on the appearance of soldiers, they drop their weapon and you are compelled as a professional to take them PWs and you bring them back to us and say they are repentant what? And then you give their godfathers sitting in government houses to begin to talk about amnesty and even referring us to how amnesty was granted to some chaps way back in the what's his name? Yeah, President Yaradua in the creeks. It's unfortunate. So now we have a new administration in place. In the last 6 or 7 months, I have not seen a change, so to speak, from what has been happening in the last 8 years. We will hope that the president now is not listening to some ill advice coming in from some elements or people who have sympathy with the last administration to him as to how to fight terrorism. We have an ample opportunity now to change the guard in how we fight terrorism. We should not. I appeal to my colleagues in the military. I understand very much what the rules of international law of war says concerning PWs and so on. I must tell you, gentlemen, if we've got to fight this war and come out of it unscathed and make sure that we don't eventually leave this war for our grandchildren to fight continually because of our attitude, then we've got to face this war and face it with all the brute it calls for. Face it with all the seriousness it calls for.
Absolutely.
And not to start heaping PWs here and there. The more PWs we gather, the more we are heaping up a reserve force for belligerents who tomorrow will face our children.
The question still left unanswered is why this government has not taken any bold step in addressing these security issues. They met this on ground, and even after taking over from Buhari, they've not taken any step to stop this carnage on the Nigerian people.
Well, whether we want to accept it or not, that is the bitter truth.
Thank you for
simple.
The bitter truth as you
when
described.
When you meet them in the forest, bring them down.
All right.
Your duty is to hasten his appointment with God.
All right. Okay.
Let him go to heaven or hell and ask for his penance.
All right. Now, Colonel Stanlabo, thank you so much. I mean, you've come in this morning talking tough, especially in the area of insecurity, and this is what some Nigerians are expecting from their leaders, from our leaders, in terms of a tough stance, taking no prisoners when it comes to the issue of insecurity, like you said, to prevent our children and generations afterwards from fighting. Colonel Sanlabo talking about how this administration or leadership must take a decisive action when it comes to insecurity and not with kids' gloves. Let me take in the story with regards to the former Senate President, Senator David Mark, who is also from the Middle Belt area of Nigeria, where he said that perhaps it was time for the president to review the security strategy, as obviously what's currently on ground isn't working. I'd like to get your take on that statement and what you think would, or what would look like a security strategy or architectural review, and especially to tackle the issue in the Middle Belt. You said something really important, that we need to, the reason why we must act and act now is so that our children or generations afterwards do not continue to fight this war. Because if you recall, the farmer-herder clash has dated pre-independence, and we're still dealing with that in Middle Belt areas. We're still having killings. In 2023, over 300 people killed in a particular local government area. So what are some of the things that would look like a security review in terms of this administration, or perhaps do you think what's on ground is currently working?
So guys, the truth remains that this current administration does not even have any plan in terms of security. We saw that they refused to come out for debate, and they refused also to engage Nigerians, during the campaign. So as it stands now, Nigerians do not even know what their plans are in terms of fighting insecurity in Nigeria. And that is already a very big blow on their parts.
Thank you so much, Ayo. I'm afraid I think what we have on ground doesn't seem to be working. And what do we have on ground? I think it's all about the over-centralization of the security architecture. Looking at our police, for instance, which is supposed to be the lead agency when we talk about security agencies now. Because even the role the military is playing all over the country now is actually the role of the police. If we decentralize to a point where we have state police, introduced into our system, okay, and community policing itself, gaining ground adequately, I think to a greater extent, so much pressure will be taken off, and there will be some level of seamlessness, in the way we forge ahead. These are things that we should have done all along. These are things we should have done in the first year of the last administration. Frankly speaking, I thought by the first year of the administration, we could have, done with this and then begin to perfect the entire whole thing. And by the exit period of the 8th year of the last president, we must have attained some level of perfection when it comes to state policing or community policing. But unfortunately, we have left these things undone, and I want to urge the present number one citizen, the commander-in-chief, to look at this seriously, because like the situation is now, we have to start taking some very drastic actions. We have to start taking some very drastic actions. Serious nations all over the world are taking drastic actions in resolving their problems and their issues, especially when it borders on security. See what Israel is doing. Even when the whole world is condemning them, they don't give it down, because their national interest comes first. Here, I don't even know whether we have a national interest, because the way we just play with ourselves is unfortunate. We must sit down, do a serious rejig again, do a serious review of the entire architecture, decentralize our entire defense arrangement in such a way that states will have some level of authority. Not a situation where I learned the 8 governors are about coming together to see what they can do about. There is nothing they can do if eventually the commissioners in those states, commissioners of police in those states, will still have to turn to their IG, who will still have to turn to Mr. President. So you lack the independence, the latitude of action. You lack it. You to just boil down to rhetoric, and at the end of the day, our usual style, it ends there. And the whole talk will bring some money, which end up in people's pocket. And that's all. That's Nigeria for you. We are never serious in addressing our problem. I just hope this time around, with the high casualty of death we are seeing in Plateau and so on, it will make us want to sit up once in a while. Yes, please.
Okay, real quickly, I've heard all you have said. You made mention of Israel rejigging the security architecture and all of that. Colonel, that you just said about Israel in the past over a month and a half, it's cost them $58 billion to be able to pound Gaza that way. I don't think Nigeria has that kind of financial wherewithal. I will have to ask, Colonel, we've been rejigging security architecture from God knows when. But the political will to get it done. Colonel, these people that are doing these things are not spirits. They are human beings. People know them. People are affiliated with them. People fund them. Why can't we solve that angle? Because even after the military went there and said, oh, it was caused by the devil and all of that, these people still wrote a letter. They were so brazen enough. They wrote a letter. They are coming back. And they still attacked. So the political angle, can't we tell these people and say, okay, enough of this attempt to grab land and build whatever you want to build? Can't we stop that?
You are very correct, Rufai. You just took the words out of my mouth. If I had not stopped talking, maybe those are the areas I would have gone into. The aspect of the political will to be able to get these things, push these things forward. We seem to be lacking in it. And that's why gradually I'm beginning to see a great deal of semblance in the way we are addressing security under this present administration and the last administration. The political will in this administration towards this thing is so weak. If you ask me, Rufai, I was expecting to see a commander-in-chief who will be touching down in Plateau, coming out of a military helicopter. I'm not talking of the presidential helicopter. A military helicopter in camouflage and steel helmet, assuring villagers. Assuring villagers that we shall get this rubbish done with. We shall stop this henceforth. Okay? Go about, touch the ladies, the women, touch the children, visit hospitals and so on. And after that, turn to your service chiefs and give them 1 or 2 weeks to produce the perpetrators. Tell your national security advisor, your DSS and the service chiefs to produce the perpetrators in the next 2 weeks or lose their jobs. This is the sort of decisiveness I expect to see from a commander-in-chief, from somebody who calls himself the father of this nation. What is happening? Just what is happening?
Wow.
Is it so difficult to get us out of this mess? We cannot crush these guys and kick them off our territory? What is happening?
Well, Colonel, I understand and appreciate your concern. Many other Nigerians feel the same way. But when the commander of the Operation Safe Haven
I think there's a breakdown again.
visited, can you hear me, Colonel? Well, let's fix that quickly and then we'll come back and then wrap up. Overwhelmed and that the crisis could have been worse. And he said, well, it was the devil's work. I mean, you are a retired soldier. Could you help us clarify this? Is there a pact between the Nigerian army and the devil? So that when the military fails, a whole general will speak on television and say it's the devil's work. Is it really the devil's work? Is there a pact with the devil in the military?
Dr. Abati, I take exception to that comment from the general that it was the devil's work. The point is that if the military was overwhelmed, we all know what may have informed such overwhelming of the military. We know we have severe manpower issues, which we have been hammering on for how many years now. And that's why when some of us come on air to talk, we really wonder what else are you coming to say that has not been said. the big fives, how far have we addressed the big fives in the military? Funding, manpower, logistics equipment, motivation and welfare, and so on. We have severe manpower issues in the military. As we speak, the Nigerian Army has only one recruitment platform where it trains and brings in new recruits, and that is the Depot NA. And I think as we speak, on an annual basis, we will get about 5,000 men from that source. If you juxtapose that with the number of men who, of course, will be exiting the army on an annual basis, either through casualties from the various operations and routine retirements and so on, you will agree with me that at the end of the day, you're only seeing about 2,000 or 2,500 fresh entrants out of the 5,000 which you think you are bringing in. So the point I'm making is that we should begin to expand on our training facilities. Nigeria is ripe enough, or the army by now is ripe enough to have about 4 or 5 depots. You know, we have one already in Zaria. What stops us from having one in the west, here in Lagos, and in the east, and even up north? You know, so that on an annual basis, we can boast of nearly 20,000 coming into the army, fresh recruits. We need to work on this assiduously, Dr. Abati. Otherwise, all this talk of being overwhelmed and so on will be there. Like you know, we are presently in a war situation. And in any given war situation, the enemy has the initiative. And if the enemy has the initiative, it means he is privileged to you know, choose his time, privileged to choose where he attacks, privileged to you know, he has all the privilege at his disposal, both time, location, and what have you. Why you remain to wait and react? So all you try to do is to see how you position yourself to be able to gain some level of proactiveness by the time he launches. And the enemy is not a daft, let's face it. And that's why they will look at where you are already and then go to ungoverned areas where you have citizens just thinly spread out and what have you in communities, and attack such communities, kill them in their numbers, so that before you even want to get there, I'm afraid they are done and even on their way out.
All right.
So we must look inwards and look for solutions to all this. It's important.
So guys, the military has come out to say that the attack that happened in Plateau State was just planned in order to embarrass the Tinubu's government. That is another new excuse being given by the military. And sometimes one keeps wondering if these people even know what their responsibilities are. Because at the end of the day, they will just be giving unnecessary excuses. They told us initially that the terrain where these bandits are staying is very rough for them to, you know, go there to dislodge them. And now they are telling us that that attack that happened in Plateau State was just in order to embarrass the government of the day. So guys, we don't even know how to start solving these issues. We don't know if it is our leaders that are to be held responsible or our security agents. We don't know. There are lapses. I mean, across all the areas. I mean, we don't even know who to rely on. And that is why we just keep saying that, oh, what INEC did during the election was another big problem for Nigeria. If INEC had allowed the Nigerian people to have choose who they want to be their president, we wouldn't have been in this mess today, because we know Peter Obi and Dati Ahmed, both of them have that political will we all are looking for in fighting insecurity in the country. But you can see that these politicians, the ones we have today, they are just playing politics with the lives of Nigerians. In case you don't know, today there was an attack again in some communities in Chibok. Many people also have lost their lives, and we are also hearing that the military mistakenly shot one of their own. I mean, There is tension everywhere. Nothing is moving in Nigeria. And we are just talking about prices of things. This morning, the price of fuel is 1,200 per liter. Then you tell me where that leaves an ordinary man. How are people going to survive? We don't have security, we don't have food, we don't have electricity, we don't have anything. Only the elites are the one enjoying Nigeria. I mean, the politicians, they are the ones that the taxpayers' monies, are working for. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Thank you.